Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Road Less Traveled with Gary L. Gigi's Boo. Gigi's Boo's not with us tonight. We'll just have to wing it here. Anyway, hope everyone's doing well over at reallibertymedia.com. That's where one needs to be in order to get the full effect of this presentation. You need to jump on over to reallibertymedia.com. There's a chat room there on the front page. About halfway down, you'll see it. Put some kind of name in there, some type of moniker, alias, or whatever, or not. Real Liberty Media will automatically assign a RLM number to you. But maybe you'd rather have your own name. So we can say hello. And you can say hello to all the great people over here in the chat room. Presently is Asmo, Grimnir, and Moose Girl, Kate, Beth Z, Chalcedony, Circolo, wow, I don't know why I got stuck on that one, Chloe, Dakota, Graham Z, Ibidon C, JJ's here, Paul Bunyan, Rob Works, Trust No One, Vinny, Woodman, behind the woodshed, and he's probably there behind the woodshed working up his archive from his 3 o'clock show, which I'll have to listen to myself because other things happen in here. Bitcoin Bob's here. Dima, having trouble tonight, boy. Java Doctor, Yehovah, Wanatako, Kozu, Ninson Dubois, North Force, Pawn Sauce, Rain, Sock Puppet, Stats Bob, Tip Bob, Avil, and Phantom 2. It's very quiet in the chat room today. I have a feeling people are doing other things, and that's okay. It's just been one of those days that will be better when it's over, I think. I think it'll be a better time for all. But anyway, let's go ahead and drop some of this mess out of the way here. Thanks, Behind the Woodshed. Glad we're 5 by 5 anyway. At least the archive will come up well. So we got a lot of things here to talk about. I'm trying to see where I want to begin. Let's begin with some of you know this week I had an experience with Office Max, aka Office Depot, since they merged at some point, where I'd gone to get a simple item, and I consulted their website and also their local edition of the website, and found an item that was one price on the website, but when I go to the store, it was another price. It was $4 more expensive. Now, sure, these things happen from time to time. It's a very fluid environment. I understand that. So I take it to the checkout and point out the fact that on their website, it's $4 cheaper than it is in a store. Well, first I'm told, well, you have to pay shipping. And that makes it the same. And I said, no, the website says that it's free shipping. Oh, well, if you have a copy of that, we can match the price. And I said, wait a minute, this is your store, it's not a competitor. And so, rather than get totally out of whack, I just went ahead and paid the price. Came home, and interestingly, on the receipt, there was a link they want to hear from you, right? One of those little survey product or customer survey things, I guess. They want to hear from you. So they heard from me. And I laid out the details of it all. And the next morning, 8:30 in the morning, the phone's jumping off the hook. It's the store manager who wasn't there at the time. Very nice fellow. I'm going to give him credit for that. He was appeared to be shocked and aghast at the situation. And we talked quite a while, and he did make things right, I will say. And so I'll give him credit for that. It's just unfortunate because I would have expected something like that 25 years ago. But not today. Anyway, all's well that ends well, I suppose. But I put that out there, one, to give a balanced report of it, because I did put it out on social media. I wanted to make sure people understand that they did step up, very quickly stepped up, and made amends. But, on the other hand, if any of you have had a similar experience with any store, for that matter, I highly recommend that you take the steps to bring it to their attention. And it's not hard to do. In fact, I even went as far as making a report to the Virginia Attorney General's office on a complaint form that has to do with customer items and things like that. So, I mean, all will turn out well. But the point of that is, a lot of people just fuss and leave and never say anything. And that's not right either. So sometimes you have to step up and say something. And what that also accomplishes, it creates a record. And the Attorney General's office, or any business, I'm not picking on Office Max, but any business that does that, a record will start to accumulate from all over the place. Other people you have no idea may have gotten ripped off, abused, or whatever in a very similar way. So you make that record. And theoretically, anyway, something will come about. I have known the Virginia State Attorney General's office will take steps when they're necessary. I do know that for a fact. But anyway, having said that, I've beaten that to death. Say something. If you see something, say something, as they like to tell you. Okay, what else going on? Beautiful weather. Weather's nice. Had to adjust some amateur radio antenna stuff here today, and that was fun. Moving around a little bitty push-up tower and some wire and all that. Got that out of the way, so be ready to play radio some more. Okay, what's going on in realpharmacy.com? We hear so much about things like aspartame. I think people intuitively, or at least by now, have a feeling that it's not a good thing, the aspartame artificial sweetener I'm referring to. Well, it turns out now we have some real honest-to-goodness, long-term, longitudinal studies of the effects of aspartame on humans. And it's not pretty. The most thorough study yet, over 2 million person years. That's a whole lot. That's a big sample, and that's a longitudinal study, and that's going to give you probably your better results. Researchers analyzed data from the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study for a 22-year period. A total of 77,218 women and 47,810 men were included in the analysis for a total of 2.2 million person-years of data. Apart from the sheer size of it, what makes this study superior to others is the thoroughness with which aspartame intake was assessed. Every 2 years, participants were given a detailed dietary questionnaire, and their diets were reassessed every 4 years. Previous studies, which found no link to cancer, only ever assessed participants' aspartame intake at one point in time, which could be a major weakness, you think? Here's the bottom line. 1 diet soda a day increases leukemia, multiple myeloma, and non-Hodgkin lymphomas. I'll say that again. 1 diet soda with your supersized Big Mac a day increases leukemia, multiple myeloma, and non-Hodgkin lymphomas. And that's 1 12-ounce can, 355 milliliters for you metric folks. It leads to a 42% higher leukemia risk in men and women. 42%. 102% higher multiple myeloma risk in men only. 102%. And a 31% higher non-Hodgkin lymphoma risk in men only. Interesting that those two things seem to target men more than women. That's probably a study in itself. Could be an interesting... I'd hate to speculate, but I hate to think there's any genetic targeting going on here. But XY chromosomes, who knows? And it goes on to talk about how the design was structured. And they state that it's unknown why only men drinking higher amounts of diet soda showed the increase for multiple myeloma and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And they note that diet soda is the largest dietary source of aspartame by far in the United States. Every year, Americans consume about 5,250 tons of aspartame in total, of which about 86% is found in diet sodas. So, okay, guys, do you think those diet sodas are working for you? Well, they're working, but not in the way you think. You might want to check it out. I'm going to drop this in the chat room there. Again, if you're not over here at reallibertymedia.com, you're going to miss the links in the chat. I hate to tell you that. The sources, it goes on to NIH, 3 different NIH sources. So National Institute of Health has actually published this. Wow. Okay, I'll drop that in the chat for any of you guys who have an interest in perhaps reading and or sharing this information. Okay, what's up? Who likes to shop at Aldi? I know I do. Aldi is like my fun place to shop now. It's a neat store. They just recently renovated this one here and many others, as I understand it. I see they have another German competitor coming to town. So these things are actually going to get interesting in that segment of the marketplace, because we have 2 very competitive German grocers are coming to town. So there should be a shootout a standoff and a shootout at the Aldi Corral or something like that. I don't know. But here's some things from an insider that popped up. Somebody who works inside Aldi and talks about 8 things that you don't know about Aldi. Pretty interesting stuff. Excuse my bump there. And they reached out to an Aldi spokeswoman, Liz Ruggles, to find out the answers to some burning questions. How is it possible that everything is so cheap? And it is. I mean, you go to Aldi's, I mean, they have really good prices on things. Now, some reasons are obvious as you go in and look around, but there's some other things that come out. And it turns out that there's a good reason for that, and the mandatory quarter per cart. See, what you do there is you have to put a quarter in the cart, or the little locking device on the cart, in order to get your shopping cart. That's pretty slick. And one of the obvious things that causes is it causes people to put the carts back in the stall, because when you put them back and you reconnect the lock, a quarter comes back. So, pretty good idea, behavioralism 101. Oh, and the self-bagging. So, if you're one of those folks that have your own shopping bags, like the fabric bags and those sorts of things, you haul those along with you. But behind the scenes, there's some other things that are going on that attract 32 million customers every month. The spokesman, Ms. Ruggles, says that they're obsessed with value, and by taking a simple approach to shopping, we keep our costs down. They don't have any hidden expenses because they choose to save shoppers money rather than having non-essential grocery store services like in-store banking, pharmacies, check cashing, and all that. They skip fancy shelving, and they keep the products right in their display boxes. And that's true. They roll out the boxes, they open them up, and they just stack them up so you can pick out what you like. They're dedicated to reducing impact on the environment, so you bring your own grocery bag, or they have some that you can buy for use for their trips to Aldi, the fabric bags and the Aldi bags. And you pack your own groceries, and it keeps the line moving. And the carts, as I mentioned, you put the quarter in the cart, and what happens with that, obviously, as I said, you put the cart back, get your quarter, but sometimes people just, and I've seen this happen quite a bit actually, if the time is correct as you're meeting someone in the parking lot, you just give them the cart. Have a nice day is kind of a pay it forward kind of thing, which is neat. Okay, they also have in-house test kitchen chefs. Now, that's something I didn't know. They actually have their own taste testers, or kitchen chefs, they call them. And at least twice a year, they test the quality of all the products before they hit the shelves. Every single one, to make sure the brands are good, if not better than national brands. So what we're getting to here, something I hadn't mentioned, is they have their own organic house brands that are unique to Aldi. And you can return any product for a full refund. So if something you get you don't like, you bring it back and they give you your money back. And if there's any expired foods, Aldi donates those foods to local community organizations or food banks and things of that nature. That way they don't waste it. You can buy Aldi exclusive brands, as we mentioned, and you're going to save a lot of money on those. They really are a lot less expensive, and they're quite good, too. Their fresh produce is among the best-selling products, and it is honestly very, very fresh. It rolls in off the truck. They just roll it out and put it in the produce aisle. And those are things like eggs and milk and butter and strawberries, bananas, grapes, oranges, and I get lettuce and celery and carrots and all that, and onions. And potatoes. This stuff is really good. You can't go wrong. If you can find an Aldi's, go there. And for the number one reason, to me, they will not allow anything with MSG, artificial coloring, or hydrogenated oils in any of their products. Now, there's also some degree of organic stuff in the store. Okay. I won't say it's 100%, so I wouldn't go that far. Not yet. I understand they're working on it. But anyway, if you get a chance to go to Aldi's, I highly recommend it. Kind of a fun place, and the people who work there are really cool. All right, what's going on in this chat room? Sock Puppet must go to Aldi. He's talking about that. Yeah, and they're not everywhere, and they predominantly on the East Coast, but they're slowly moving their way across country. So Myers. There are no Myers around here, but I've heard they're quite good. Very good. Okay, it's getting that time of year. All the weeds are starting to grow up, and my God, these people out here buying up all this damn Roundup and spraying their yards and spraying their sidewalks and their driveways and and all this glyphosate crap is finding its way into the water table. That's verified, even though Monsanto said that glyphosate is a non-persistent. That's why it takes 7 years to rehabilitate a farm that uses glyphosate. But I digress. So, what can one do to avoid this little business with Monsanto, but still take care of the weeds? Well, there are actually a couple of techniques that I've discovered. One is using regular old vinegar. Yeah, vinegar does it. Just straight from the bottle, store brand white vinegar. And there's some before and after pictures from Kevin Lee Jacobs, his website, agardenforthehouse.com. And he has a before and after. He has a pea gravel path in his herb garden, and he sprayed it down with vinegar. And let's see, how long did it take to say? Oh wow, one night. Okay, one night, and the weeds were deader than dead, as he writes. He used vinegar on the gravel paths, brick walkways, and bluestone patio. That's what he does. Now imagine that. A lot of people, right now, this is right beside a herb garden, okay? A lot of people are going to go through there with Roundup and spray all that. And where's that Roundup going? It's going into your herb garden, right? How wonderful is that? And speaking of Roundup, in 2011, Monsanto agreed with the New York Attorney General's office to discontinue their use of the terms biodegradable and environmentally friendly in ads promoting Roundup. Why? Because the terms were false. Roundup is neither biodegradable nor environmentally friendly, as we mentioned before. So the next time you want to murder weeds, douse them with some white vinegar. It's cheap, easy to use, and you can just pour it into your little spray bottle and go to town. Now, one thing to remember, vinegar is not selective. It can harm plants that you wish to keep, so be careful that you don't accidentally spray your herbs. Okay, what's another one, though? A very interesting recipe. It's one, actually, I'd heard of previously. And how many folks remember 20 Mule Team Borax commercials? I think Grimner probably remember that, and Hal probably remember. But borax is I suppose it's a mineral of some sort. Natural, never really looked into it. But it's also a weed killer. If you want to control your weeds, keep them from suffocating your plants, homemade borax weed killer is an inexpensive and less toxic option than many commercial weed killers. And obviously they're careful not to call out Monsanto here. But we all know who it is. Borax is a naturally occurring substance that contains sodium borate, a colorless crystal that when added to water dissolves easily. This boron compound is created when seasonal lakes experience repeated evaporation. Borax is a versatile product used as a laundry booster and a common ingredient in homemade non-toxic cleaning products. Borax is generally considered low in toxicity, but you should always take care when using any chemical or product. Keep it out of the reach of children and pets to prevent any potential injury. Now, here's how you put it together. Unused borax can be stored in a cool, dry location for several months. However, borax weed killer should be used immediately after you create it. Because it's in a powdered form, you must first dissolve 10 ounces of it in 4 ounces of warm water. Once the borax is well dissolved, add 2.5 gallons of water and mix thoroughly. And this mixture will treat an area of about 1,000 square feet. And you can increase or decrease as necessary. And you apply it by just spraying it in the spring when the weeds are actively growing for once a year for no more than 2 years in a row. Okay? Once a year for no more than 2 years in a row. Borax-based weed killer is non-selective. And there's another one. You got to be careful where you spray it because it'll just destroy everything. Okay. Any considerations? It's safe to use on established lawns, but should not be applied near flower or vegetable gardens because it might destroy or severely damage the plants. Okay, well that makes sense. Okay, anyway, I'll drop that in the chat. There's another option. You have vinegar and you have borax now. Kills fleas too. Yeah, I guess it would. Actually, that would be good if you. Some people actually have flea problems in their yards. And, if you have dogs and cats running around, maybe other wild animals running around the yard, and the fleas jump off and jump on, like a super highway. And if you walk through, they'll jump on you too. So anyway, yeah, Grimner points out that it kills fleas. That could be a plus. So it'll probably kill a lot of things if you're not careful where you spray it. Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk about computers. Now this one, I actually didn't know this. And Grimner's going to laugh because I'm sure anybody like him, the computer guy, Cowboy Tech, and probably Hal will laugh at me because I had no idea what exactly that power symbol does, or what the power button does. And the power symbol, though, what it means, that the one I'm talking about is like a curled up U with a vertical line down inside of it. That's your power button. Yeah, make sure you aim when you shoot your killer. That's right, sock puppet. Anyway, it's curious to me that we all touch or long press or tap this button every day, sometimes several times a day. But the power icon has become so ubiquitous that its meaning doesn't get a second thought. So where does that little symbol come from, that modern day hieroglyphic? Actually, the vertical line symbolizes the number 1. Okay? The half circle symbolizes a 0. So what it's together, obviously, it refers to the binary on and off states. However, there's one thing that we all need to realize. When you see that symbol and you press it, that button does not cut the power fully. It puts the computer in a standby mode. The line inside the circle, or an empty circle, would turn on or shut down power completely. So imagine that, just a 0 or a 0 with a line fully enclosed would be actually on and off. But interestingly, it's standby. And the way I discovered that, there are some programs, gaming programs actually, that if you don't drop them completely, you can't put your computer in standby. You can't put it to sleep, because you try to put it to sleep, it'll immediately wake back up again. You try to shut it down, it'll immediately turn back on again. So that's where I discovered this, because you're really not turning it off. I guess some of the computer games like to keep access to your network. I think probably what's going on with that. So anyway, it's just one of those little small things that fascinated me. I mean, there might be some folks out there like me who didn't realize all that. Yeah, it invokes the Power Rangers for sure, or kind of the Power Managers, I guess, for lack of a better description. All right, let's get kind of spooky here. Not totally spooky, but something that's really interesting. Well, they found this 800-year-old clay pot, okay? And they're saying that what was discovered inside is changing history as we understand it. It's a Native American clay pot, and this was located at the Menominee Reservation in Wisconsin. Moose Girl, be familiar with that. We go down. Let's go down the line until we get to the meat of it. Okay, it's been buried for about 800 years, and most likely it was buried to preserve its contents for later, and apparently was forgotten all about until someone just dug it up. All right, and why is that jumping in my face? There we go. No, still going to do it. Okay. Don't you hate it when these websites will pop out from the side? Okay, so what's in it? What was in it was an extinct species of squash, the seeds thereof, presumed to have been lost forever. Wow. So here they are, seeds to what was believed to be an extinct species of squash. So what they've done is they actually planted those seeds, and they grew. And so they now have restored something that's been gone for a long time, a species of squash, and they're calling it Geta Okosomen. And that would be a Menominee word. And it basically means cool old squash. So anyway, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat little thing. You never know what you're going to find, do you? Okay, so here we are. We'll paste that in. You can take a look at that at your leisure. Okay, what time is it? 7:32. All right, we're going along okay. Okay. How many guys out there like to do woodworking projects? I know I do, and the price of wood is like crazy. So if you're like me, we like to go around and try to find it as cheaply as possible. And here's some ideas, or 10 ways actually, where you might be able to locate a cheap source of wood. If you have any commercial woodworking firms anywhere nearby, milling companies, furniture manufacturers, cabinet makers, those kind of guys, you can always stop by and ask what kind of scraps they have lying around. according to this article that is in woodworkingeveryday.com. A lot of places you can load up the back of a pickup truck with all the rejected wood or scraps for $50. They recommend that you speak with the owner or manager, be really cool and friendly, and be prepared to be rejected, because not everyone's going to want to do that for you. Okay, number 2, lumber mills and lumber yards. And like the before, the lumber mills and lumber yards, they understand the value of space. Okay, now that is a big deal to them. Okay, so they don't have a lot of space to stack up rejected wood or ends that have been cut off and all this stuff. So you can talk to the yard manager and see if he has anything lying around you can take off his hands. And that's an idea for that. Furniture, yard sales, junk stores, and flea markets. So if you're looking for some fine wood, like you're doing some type of project, like cherry oak or mahogany or something like that, you can go to these yard sales and junk stores and find some old beat up furniture that you can repurpose. You can salvage the wood from. And sometimes you can do that for like $5. So that's a pretty good way to get some neat wood. Sock Puppet says they could have come up with a name that attributes the source of them. Yeah, I know. They could have, for sure. I'm not sure how they figured that out. Okay. Volunteer for a deconstruction project or demolition project. So some old house is getting torn down. They need a little help to tear stuff up. You might be able to barter your way out of there with some pieces of wood that you can select for yourself. So that's kind of neat. They get the work done. It doesn't cost them anything but some of the junk wood. That's a pretty good idea, actually. And check out the woodworking forums online or the local papers or things like that. And a lot of times people are just getting rid of excess stock or something like that. There's at least one lumber dealer who posts regularly at WoodNet, who seems to give great deals and great service. So that's something to look at. And also, along with that, construction site dumpsters, burn piles, find old wood pallets, discarded roadside furniture, free cycle, Craigslist, woodworking forums, I think we mentioned. Fallen wood from storms, construction, and arborists. Now, this time of year, being springtime, there will be some fairly violent storms, I suspect, in many parts of the country. So if you want to be a good neighbor, you can help clean up a little bit, and you can probably haul off some nice articles of relatively fresh wood. So anyway, there's something to deal with there if you're into that kind of do-it-yourself woodworking stuff. Moving on down the line here. Let's change gears a little bit, talk about a couple of animals. I actually had an experience with two yesterday, two of the same species. And this is 10 fascinating facts about ravens. They call them ravens. I personally call them crows, but I know there's a technical distinction, but this picture looks like a crow to me. And I had a couple of crows come visit yesterday, and I am bird clan, so that's not unusual for me. I have hawks and crows and all kinds of birds come visiting from time to time. Just sit outside and they'll come around. Two came around yesterday and searched around the yard where I was sitting looking for something to eat. That was kind of fun. They weren't talking, but sometimes they'll talk to you. And actually, ravens are one of the smartest animals. So when it comes to intelligence, they rate up with chimpanzees and dolphins. In one logic test, the raven had to get a hanging piece of food by pulling up a bit of the string, anchoring it with his claw, and repeating until the food was in reach. Many ravens got the food on the first try, some within 30 seconds. In the wild, ravens have pushed rocks on people to keep them from climbing into their nests, or up to their nests. They've stolen fish by pulling a fisherman's line out of ice holes, and played dead beside a beaver carcass to scare other ravens away from a delicious feast. They're also known in the Cherokee world as a messenger. So when a raven comes around, they're usually trying to tell you something. If a raven knows another raven is watching it hide its food, it will pretend to put the food in one place while it's really hiding it in another. Since other ravens are just as smart, it only works sometimes. And ravens can imitate human speech. I don't know. Can I get this across? Let me see if I can get this across. Okay, that's up. Let's give it a try. See if this will go across. I don't know if it will or not.
Say nevermore. Waka 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 waka. Say nevermore. Waka 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 waka.
And that's old Mr. Raven sitting there in the window. He's obviously tame, but he does a Edgar Allan Poe pretty well there. Yeah, sock puppet. I think I've seen things like that too. They know, they have a concept of tools, how to use tools. And what sock puppet says in the chat room, he's watched one break off a splinter and poke it in a hole to retrieve food. Yeah, they're pretty smart. And I know from my own experience growing up in the outback in the country, in the mountains, they recognize the difference between you with a rifle and you without a rifle, and you can tell by the way they react in the fields. If you're not armed, and you can walk in the fields and they just don't pay any attention. If you are armed, the sentries, and they post sentries around the perimeter for wherever they're feeding as a group. And as soon as they see you and you're armed, the sentry will sound the alarm and they're all gone. So they know. It's interesting. It's kind of eerie, actually. It says in captivity, ravens can learn to talk better than some parrots. They also mimic other noises like car engines, toilets flushing, and animal and bird calls. Ravens have been known to imitate wolves or foxes to attract them to carcasses that the raven isn't capable of breaking open. So when the wolf or the fox is done eating, the raven gets the leftovers. See, that's a cooperative method, isn't it? Now, Europeans, though, often saw ravens as evil in disguise. Many European cultures took one look at this large black bird and thought it was evil in the flesh. In France, people believed ravens were the souls of wicked priests, while crows were wicked nuns. In Germany, ravens were the incarnation of damned souls, or sometimes Satan himself. In Sweden, ravens that croaked at night were thought to be the souls of murdered people who didn't have proper Christian burials. And in Denmark, people believed that night ravens were exorcised spirits, that you better not look at them in case there was a hole in the bird's wing, because you might look through the hole and turn into a raven yourself. Alrighty then. Yeah, they get some strange ideas over there, don't they? And of course, we're aware that ravens have been the subject of a great amount of mythology. And cultures from Tibet to Greece have seen the raven as a messenger for the gods. You know, that's the Cherokee look at it, the messenger. That's what we look at it. Yeah. Sock Puppet points out that ravens have been proven to talk better than politicians. I'll tell you what now. I don't know. Hillary does all right. Anyway, the Viking god Odin had two ravens, Hugin and Munin, which means thought and memory, which flew around the world every day and reported back to Odin every night about what they saw. The Chinese said ravens caused bad weather in the forest to warn people that the gods were going to pass by. And some Native American tribes worshiped the raven as a deity in and of itself. I don't know about that. Called simply Raven, he is described as a sly trickster who is involved in the creation of the world. All righty then. And they're very playful. Actually, there was a YouTube video this reminds me of, and I think it was done out of Europe. And there was snow on a rooftop, and it showed very clearly that a raven was on the really steep pitched roof. He would stand at the peak and jump and slide down slide down on the snow and take off flying and fly back up the top and repeat process. It was like he was skiing. It was really weird. Here's something that I really didn't know this, but it's interesting and really kind of unknown why they do it. Ravens will lie down in ant hills and roll around so the ants will swarm on them. Or they'll chew up the ants and rub their guts on their feathers. The scientific name for this is called anting. Songbirds, crows, and jays do it too. The behavior is not well understood. Theories range from the ants acting as an insecticide and fungicide to ant secretion soothing a molting bird's skin, or they say it might just be a mild addiction. They don't know exactly why they do that, but for whatever reason, anting feels good to a bird. Ravens actually will use hand gestures, if you will. They make very sophisticated non-vocal signals. In other words, they gesture to communicate. A study in Austria found that ravens point with their beaks to indicate an object to another bird, just as we do with our fingers. They also hold up an object to get another bird's attention. This is the first time researchers have observed naturally occurring gestures in any animal other than primates. So they just nod their head and point their beak and say, "Hey, look over there. Look at that moron." Yeah. Now, ravens are adaptable. Evolutionarily speaking, the deck is actually stacked in a raven's favor. They can live in a variety of habitats from snow to desert to mountains to forests. They're scavengers with a huge diet that includes fish, meat, seeds, fruit, carrion, and garbage. They're not above tricking animals out of their food. One raven will distract another animal, and the other will steal its food. So they'll team up on you. They have very few predators and live quite a long time, 17 years in the wild and up to 40 years in captivity. And ravens actually have been observed showing empathy for one another. Despite their mischievous nature, as we anthropomorphize them, ravens seem capable of feeling empathy. When a raven's friend loses in a fight, they will seem to console the losing bird. They also remember birds they like and will respond in a friendly way to certain birds for at least 3 years after seeing them. They also respond negatively to enemies and suspiciously to strange ravens. So, they'll point their beak over there, "Hey, who's that wise guy?" Although a flock of ravens is called an unkindness. I didn't know that. I thought it was called a murder, but I think maybe a flock of crows is called a murder. I'm not sure. Anyway, a flock of ravens is called an unkindness. The bird appears to be anything but. And last but not least, like human teenagers, they'll roam around in teenage gangs. When they reach adolescence, they leave home and join a gang. The flocks of young birds live and eat together until they mate and pair off. And interestingly, ravens mate for life and live in pairs in a fixed territory. So getting back to how we started with the two ravens coming to visit, the first one came, scoped it out, and then the other one came. And once they were together, they hung around together there in the yard. So they were clearly a mature couple, I suppose. Anyway, I think ravens are kind of cool. I think animals in general are cool. They're a lot smarter and a lot more aware than I think we'd like to give credit. Okay. Where are we at? Check the time. Ooh, we got 11 minutes. I might just make it. This one's going to be good, I think, because everyone likes to learn hacks. We got 33 hacks that are actually useful. Some of them are pretty ingenious. Like, how many of us have experienced your butter comes out of the refrigerator or the freezer and it's too doggone cold to spread on the toast and it tears the toast up. Well, guess what? Break out your cheese grater. What an interesting hack. I never thought of it. Yeah, break out your cheese grater and the small holes, just grate the butter onto the bread. Ta-da. There you go. And if you like mushrooms in your salad, but you don't like sitting there with a knife and carving them up into pieces, use an egg slicer, or like the hard-boiled egg slicer. Put your mushroom on there and slice it. Makes nice little slices, just like sliced bread. Now, watermelon. Now we're starting. Well, not quite, but later on we'll get into that season. I think a lot of people like watermelon, but what do you do with the seeds? Maybe you like to keep the seeds. Maybe you like to grow watermelon. Well, here's a little trick. What this one fellow has done is he cut the watermelon in half. He took his spoon and cut a little pocket along the side of the watermelon, and that's where he deposits the seeds. So you can actually eat the watermelon and deposit the seeds in the little pocket that's off to the side. That's kind of neat, huh? Now, what's next up? How about Post-it notes? Now, this is kind of, I don't know, this is a little bit weird. But have you ever been annoyed by Post-it notes that curl up? You pull them off and the end of them's curled. Well, apparently, we've been pulling them off all wrong. They say to put the sticky side down, not up, but down, okay? You flip the Post-it notes where the sticky side is down, and don't peel them against in the direction of, where it all pulls off at once. Actually peel them, it's hard to describe. You're going to pull it the other way, where on the left side, it's like you're tearing a page out of a book. You pull it up, and with the sticky side down, and it comes out nice and flat. And you'll see that better in the link. Okay. You can always, if you hard up and you don't have an iron or an ironing board, you can hang your shirt up over the oven and put a couple of pans of water and boil them and let the steam come up and steam your shirt. Works pretty well. Just be careful you don't burn the house down. Okay, if you're drilling a hole in drywall and making a mess, remember that Post-it note we learned how to take off correctly? Well, you just take one and you stick it underneath the location where you're going to drill, fold it in half horizontally, so that way it catches all the drywall dust as you're drilling. That's a pretty interesting idea. Okay, toothpaste tube, use a bobby pin. Everybody know what a bobby pin is? I don't know. A lot of people might not know what that is. It's a little metal pin that you can put in your hair to hold it in place. But yeah, use a bobby pin to squeeze it all out. Just roll it up and pin it. That's an interesting little trick. How about, how many of us have had stripped screws that we have to fight with or cut the tops off of and countersink out? I've had a couple. Anyway, here's a trick. This fellow used a rubber band to get a better grip with the screwdriver. So basically he had a wide flat rubber band and put it down over top of the head of the screw and stuck the screwdriver onto it, and the rubber band helped get a better purchase. Okay, you wonder how to cook 2 pizzas at one time? Interesting little trick. They cut the pizzas in half, and placing the straight edges against the walls and door, in the direction of the walls and door of the oven, everything fits on the rack. So you can do 2 pizzas at once. You'll see that as in the handout here. Interesting trick. Let's see. Command hooks achievement. Let's skip that. Yeah, we can see that. You can see that one too. Some of these are. Here's one. Don't want to wait by the oven for your pizza to get crispy. Place someone's phone in front of the oven and keep an eye on your pizza via video call. What? Wow. Now, I don't know. I guess that's inventive. It seems a little lazy to me, but that's okay. Okay, you like your wine cold or chilled, but you don't want to water it down with ice cubes, of course. Add some frozen grapes instead. That's a good thought. Yeah, frozen grapes are good just by themselves, but to toss them in a glass of white wine, that would be very good. Okay, let's skip on that. Okay, don't have a corkscrew, right? How many of us run into that situation? I have. No, here we go. This one uses, you put a screw into the top of the cork and a pair of pliers. Now, what I'm seeing here is they used a hammer with the claw end. Now, I don't see exactly how that would work without breaking the glass. So I'll let you look at that as it comes around. Oh no, you got to be kidding me. If you need a cable holder, just use a Lego minifigure. They show a picture of a little Lego minifigure standing there holding a USB cable, and I'm not sure what that cable is, but in his little hands. That's an interesting thought. Okay, I'll let you see that one. Some of these are easier to see than they are to describe. Okay, now here's a thought. You ever had these big, huge, beautiful, large candles that they don't burn for crap after you've used them for a while? The wax is melted and it smothers out the fire and all that stuff. Well, here's a trick that someone came up with. You can make them last a little longer by putting tea lights inside of them. Oh, so that's kind of an interesting idea. If you can visualize that, you'll be able to see it on the handout. Wow, where's this? Okay, number 30. Oh, wow, we're not halfway there. We're not going to do all these because you're probably getting as bored hearing them as I am reading them. Use a baggie to attach your phone to the seat back table for some in-flight entertainment. You have got to be kidding me. On an airplane, obviously, where the tray table, where the little clip that holds it in place, you put your phone in a baggie and hang it there so you can see. Oh man, we're gonna skip on that one. That one, they just kind of wore me out with that. That's a little like techno freaky to me. So anyway, there are 33 hacks. You can sort through them at your leisure and see if there's anything in there that you feel by which you feel inspired. Let's go back to animals for a second. With another 3 minutes left to go, we'll jump through here. And let's go talk about wolves. Why do wolves mate for life? And it goes on to say 22 other interesting things that we won't get to but things about these animals. They're very often depicted as terrifying, snarling creatures that threaten our heroes. Authors such as Aesop, Brothers Grimm, Charles Perrault all wrote children's stories where the big bad wolf was a ravening villain, willing to do anything to fill its belly, even impersonate grandma for a chance to eat Little Red Riding Hood. But wolves don't really deserve this bad rap. They're actually pretty amazing animals, and they play an important role in nature. For example, did you know that wolves can smell their prey from almost 2 miles away? Which is 100 times better than humans, by the way. And some other things. So the largest member of the wild dog or canid family, also known as the timber wolf, common wolf, for scientific circles, Canis lupus. The gray wolf is an ancestor to domesticated dogs. As adults, they can be 4 to 6 feet long and weigh up to 175 pounds. But despite their name, they don't always have gray fur. Some are white, brownish gray, or black. They were at one time the most widely distributed large mammal. Gray wolves were found across the northern hemisphere, including North America, Europe, Asia, and North Africa. But they came into conflict with humans, and guess who won out? In the lower 48 states, only about 10% of their former range still remains. And it goes on to say, and we'll end up with this, they are usually, emphasize the word usually, not dangerous to people. Wolves are actually fairly timid and would prefer to avoid people. Attacks on humans are quite rare. In fact, there have been very few recorded wild wolf attacks on humans in North America. In the past 100 years, no lethal attack by a wild, healthy wolf has ever been confirmed in the lower 48 states. So anyway, I'll drop this in the chat for those who enjoy wolves, of course. Gigi's Boo is Wolf Clan, so that's her story. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's 8 o'clock. Sorry Gigi's Boo wasn't here. I know I'm not anywhere near as exciting as she is. But, hopefully we'll get her back on here in subsequent shows. And we'll be sure to check us out later on. If I can get this outro to play. There we go. Now we're talking, I think. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us this week on The Road Less Traveled. Say hello to everybody in the chat room again. Have a good night. Have a good week. And we'll catch you at the same time next week on The Road Less Traveled. Take care. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.